He sealed the gate from the wrong side. He died. Then Annihilus made sure he died again. And again. This wasn't just another fight. It was the day the Human Torch faced death, resurrection, and the most brutal gauntlet the Negative Zone had ever seen. Johnny Storm didn't burn out. He went supernova. The Baxter Building's crown jewel isn't a weapon, yet it might be the most dangerous machine on Earth. A window of vibrating light sunk into the lab floor. Reed Richards calls it a bridge, not a gate. He built it to explore a hostile parallel reality and keep that hostility far from Manhattan. Bridges go both ways, and on the day everything went wrong, the Zone chose to cross. The alarms don't beep, they scream. Ben Grimm is mid-sentence, halfway through a joke, then suddenly interrupted by an abrupt alarm, warning of incoming danger. The Future Foundation kids freeze. On the main display, the Negative Zone resolves into a living tide of carapace and blade. It isn't an attack, it's a migration with knives. Valeria runs numbers because that's what she does when she's scared. The model is merciless. The only way to stop the surge is to hard seal the portal from the Zone's side. Franklin Richards is eager for the challenge, and Ben squares his shoulders, even though he's flesh and bone and breakable. Johnny doesn't wait any longer, and they all cross over the portal immediately. As the team clears the initial horde of enemies and try to figure out how to seal the portal, the problem becomes apparent. There isn't time for a plan, only a promise that someone will stand in the breach. Ben bravely volunteers for the task, but Johnny's eyes flick from Ben's worried face to the terrified kids. Then to the lever that seals the door forever. Ben starts to protest, but Johnny moves first, with the speed of someone who's already decided. He shoves his best friend through the portal, slams the mechanism, and severs the argument with steel and finality. As the portal starts to seal back up, Ben realizes what Johnny intends to do, the ultimate sacrifice, with his desperation turning him back into his rock form. But it's too late. With his final words, Johnny turns toward the breach, where the surface boils with chitin, wings, and hunger. One steadying breath, a crooked smile, equal parts defiance, acceptance, and goodbye. And then, with the weight of the world behind him, flame on. The battlefield becomes a starlit furnace. Heat rolls off Johnny in waves that make monsters melt. The first ranks of the horde vaporize mid-lunge. But the wave adapts. They climb over one another. They come from all sides. They soak the ground in bodies, just to smother the fire. Johnny answers with spirals of flame, with cutting fans that turn wings to ash, with point-blank bursts that etch ghosts into the rocks. Baiting the horde, Johnny draws them all in to a close range, to unleash his ultimate weapon. Nova. With the power of a small nuke, Johnny vaporizes all monsters and forms a crater around him, hoping his ultimate power would be the answer to the relentless horde. However, moments later, the truth strikes him hard. Quantity defeats quality. Talons hook, stingers reach for him once again, and the light around him dims. In a final act of defiance, Johnny attempts the impossible, going Nova consecutively twice, but is struck down by Annihilus before he can. Johnny Storm dies where no one can see him, doing the one thing no one else could do. The boy who loved speed discovers there is nothing slower than dying so other people can live. Death is supposed to be the end. In the Negative Zone, it's intermission. Johnny wakes to pain as alien worms stitch him back together, knitting heat-scorched nerves with obscene efficiency. When his vision clears, he's on the bed of a lab in Negative Zone, being resurrected with special worms that integrate themselves with him. In the prison cells beneath, he meets the Light Brigade, captives pulled from shattered empires and lost expeditions. Their eyes carry the weight of too many resurrections. They explain the rules of their captivity. They have to fight in an arena surrounded by 1,000 throats screaming for more. High above, enthroned in armor like a dead world skeleton, sits Annihilus. The rules of the pit are simple and cruel. Fight, fall, be rebuilt, fight again. Johnny learns the rhythm because there's no choice. They've forgotten how to hope. Johnny hasn't. Not yet. He shares warmth in a place that eats light, cracks jokes that land like flares in the dark, and starts treating each forced match like reconnaissance. The hothead learns patience, and patience turns into a plan. Time becomes elastic in the pit. Fights last forever and end instantly. Days pass in an hour, and 1 hour lasts a year. Johnny starts counting resurrections by the scars the worms fail to erase. He learns names in the cells, names from languages his flames can't pronounce right, and he promises each of them something specific. To carry a message, to swing the first blow, to remember. He fails them, then keeps trying. Some nights, he lies on the stone and imagines his sister's voice. He lets that voice be louder than the crowd. When the overseers drag him up again, he smiles because defiance is the only weapon they can't take. Every tyrant hides his weakness in plain sight. For Annihilus, it's the cosmic control rod, a black gold totem that doesn't just radiate power, it organizes it. With the rod, the swarm is a single will. Without it, it's a storm without an eye. Johnny studies guard rotations, memorizes the pattern of overseer drones, notes the moments when Annihilus loosens his grip to bask in the crowd's adoration. He whispers with the brigade through the bars, tapping out signals, mapping routes, and promising something none of them dare say aloud: home. The plan is insane, even by Fantastic Four standards. Ignite a riot at the bell, break chains in the confusion, drive straight at the throne, and rip the rod from the Insect King's claws. It may be suicide, but in a place where death is a loop, a clean break is mercy. The brigade pushes back at first. Hope is dangerous here. Johnny doesn't sell them hope. He sells them math. He breaks the escape into pieces, small enough to believe in. 3 locks to pick, 2 towers to blind, 1 throne to reach. He walks them through the choreography. Who throws the first chain? Who fakes a collapse? Who catches the rod if he misses? He assigns backups for the backups, because he's learned the negative zone eats plans for breakfast. And still, at the end, he adds something Reed would approve of and Ben would recognize: a leap of faith. The bell tolls, the spark becomes a wildfire. Prisoners hurl shackles like iron comets. Johnny turns the very air into a ladder of fire, each rung scorching the swarm. Annihilus launches from his throne with a shriek that rattles bone, carapace flashing as it sheds heat like rain, his wings cutting the smoke. Mid-air they collide, flame versus void-cold chitin, spinning through a halo of embers, shattered drones, and fragments of the arena floor. The rod slips from Annihilus's grasp, turns end over end, catching the light so it looks for a moment like a black gold comet of its own. For 1 suspended second, everything in the arena orbits that falling line of power. The crowd, the combatants, even the fire itself seeming to lean toward it. Johnny dives through pain and smoke, muscles screaming, and closes his hand around destiny. The rod vibrates in his grip, a command without words, and the annihilation wave drops as one organism to its knees, their screeches silenced mid-cry. In the sudden vacuum of sound, you can hear Johnny breathing. You can hear the crowd remembering how to be afraid. With the rod, The gate is no longer a wall, but a hinge. Johnny parts the swarm like a living tide, their claws scraping the air but never touching him. The city of bone looms around them, every spire whispering how close they came to never seeing home again. He leads the light brigade forward, their faces lit in his fire like survivors of a shipwreck rowing toward shore. The negative zone's warped horizon folds away, and the Baxter building resolves ahead through the shimmering gate. Johnny steps through, carrying proof that hope fights back and wins, his return immediately boosting the morale of every single hero fighting a Kree invasion. Spider-Man is the first to welcome back Johnny. Ben's face breaks with guilt before it melts into relief, his hand clapping Johnny's shoulder in a silent apology. Sue's arms lock around her brother, a hug that says more than words could. Reed's eyes flick from Johnny to the rod to the readouts. Running 1,000 futures in a mind that never stops. The reunion is short. The lesson is carved deep. The boy who left on impulse returns with the authority of someone who's seen the end and chosen to fight past it. Survival changes people. Survival like this refines them. Johnny's ceiling was always heat. The difference now is control. Nova Flame stops being an exclamation point and becomes punctuation he chooses with care. He writes in fire without burning the page. He holds back when holding back saves lives. Ben carries the ache of what ifs. If he'd still been the thing, this choice might have been his. Sue becomes a wall between Johnny and anyone who dare exploit the sacrifice he made. Reed does what Reed always does. He turns pain into protocol, folding Johnny's experience into future Foundation drills, so no child ever has to make that choice in a panic again. The family recalibrates around a simple truth. The Torch didn't just survive the negative zone. He learned how to win there. When missions come, he's different on them. Less banter, more reads of the room. Fewer stunts, more saves that look boring until you realize nobody else could have threaded them. He mentors the Foundation kids with a gentleness that would have surprised his younger self. He reminds them that courage isn't the loudest thing in the room. It's the last thing to leave. And on nights when the negative zone clouds roll in on his memory, he lets the fear pass through without pretending it isn't there. Heroes aren't fearless. Heroes are people who make room for fear and still do the work. In the end, true heroism isn't measured by the battles you win, but by the ones you're willing to fight knowing you might lose. Johnny Storm stepped into the fire, not to be remembered as a martyr, but to give others a chance to live. And sometimes, that's the kind of victory that changes everything. If you enjoyed this story, hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dives into Marvel's most defining moments, and tell us in the comments which hero or villain you want us to cover next.